All right, let's go and move on to shocking new details that we're learning about this federal indictment against Sean Diddy Combs. You can put this up on the screen, tear sheet with some of the details. He's been denied bail. This is per Variety. Sean Diddy Combs denied bail on sex trafficking and racketeering charges. So he was charged with 3 counts: racketeering conspiracy, sex trafficking by force, fraud, or coercion, and transportation to engage in prostitution. The judge decided there were no conditions that could guarantee Combs' appearance in court. She said she considered alternatives like home detention, substantial bond offered by Combs, but ultimately concluded that the presumption in favor of detention has not been rebutted by the defense. Makes sense. This is a man with nearly endless resources. You know, if anyone was going to be a flight risk, seems like it would be him. In fact, I'm a little bit shocked he didn't already try to flee, knowing that this was coming. But he has pled not guilty and is, I guess, going to have his day in court. Let's put the next details up on the screen from the indictment, which I read in full. It's a 14-page indictment, not overly lengthy. So this is what the grand jury charged. As I said, it was 3 counts: racketeering conspiracy, sex trafficking by force, and transportation to engage in prostitution. Go ahead, guys, and put up some of the next details so that I can read this off of the screen. So the core of this, the allegations here, involve these quote-unquote freak-offs. And they say in the indictment that he subjected victims to physical, emotional, and verbal abuse to force them to engage in these freak-offs. He maintained control over his victims through physical violence, promises of career opportunities, granting and threatening to withhold financial support by other coercive means, including tracking their whereabouts, dictating their appearance, monitoring their medical records, controlling their housing, and also supplying them with drugs. During and separate from freak-offs, Combs, among other things, hit, kicked, threw objects at, and dragged victims at times by their hair. These assaults resulted in injuries that took days or weeks to heal. He threatened their careers and livelihoods, including if they resisted participating in the quote-unquote freak-offs. Victims believed they could not refuse his demands without risking their financial or job security or without repercussions in the form of physical or emotional abuse. Combs also used the sensitive, embarrassing, and incriminating recordings that he made during freak-offs as collateral to ensure the continued obedience and silence of the victims. Saagar, if you read through the indictment, yes, this is, you know, Sean Combs is at the center of it, but they really frame this as a, you know, years-long, we know decades-long, allegedly, criminal enterprise. So Bad Boy Records was not just about, you know, media, entertainment, culture, et cetera. They frame a core priority of Bad Boy Records being, you know, this repeated, systematic abuse and the cover-up of that abuse being at the core of the enterprise. And really, I mean, this is a portrait of a monster that you're looking at here, and what's being alleged, he says he's not guilty, what's being alleged is wholly consistent with what Cassie, the R&B singer, alleged he had done to her. And of course, we saw in the public domain that horrifying video of her being beaten and dragged in a hotel hallway. That comes up in this indictment, and they also talk about how he paid off a hotel worker to make sure that that never saw the light of day.
Yeah, that's right. And included, by the way, in the search of his home, they found narcotics, videos, 3 AR-15s with defaced serial numbers, and, quote, more than 1,000 bottles of baby oil and lubricant that were called freak-off supplies. His employees were instructed to ensure that, quote, freak-offs were always stocked with baby oil, linens, and lighting. Law enforcement seized multiple of those supplies as evidence in both of his homes of not only his proclivities, but obviously what they allege is basically a scheme arranging for victims of sex workers and others to be able to move about the country and enable him to continue this scheme. I will say this really does actually validate a lot of the details in terms of like forcing a lot of the people involved to engage with like male prostitutes is something that they allege here. The fact that he was denied bail is a pretty big deal, just to show the way that the court sees it. They claim that they are going to appeal the decision. Their defense basically comes down to this, quote, is it sex trafficking? Not if everybody wants to be there. That is what his attorney, Mark Agnifilo, said in terms of his client's innocence. And that actually is going to be a key part of the case. And I mean, it is an interesting question about consent and about what it exactly means for that. I mean, I think they probably have him from reading the indictment relatively like dead to rights in terms of transporting people across lines for sex purposes. That is a federal crime whenever it comes to prostitution. I guess the big question that they're going to get is about the consent, not necessarily of the sex workers themselves, but also the other people who are involved and their allegations of being a victim. Where they have, I think, a better case is about the violence and then the evidence of the violence that he perpetrated on those people. But I could see some interesting like legal chicanery around that question of like whether people voluntarily wanted to be at these things or not.
If the government proves the allegations they made here, it will not be a difficult question because you're talking about, you know, any given girl being beaten, you know, and forced, subject to emotional abuse. You're talking about her being drugged. You're talking about him saying, if you don't come, I am going to destroy you. I will destroy your career. There are allegations of arson in here and multiple instances of arson. They actually don't go into the details, but one allegation that we know that's in the public sphere is that he threatened Cassie that if she left him and continued dating Kid Cudi, rapper Kid Cudi, that he would, I think he threatened to blow up Kid Cudi's car, and then lo and behold, Kid Cudi's car blows up in the driveway. So that could be one of the instances of arson that they're talking about. So again, government has to prove their case, but also keep in mind that allegedly this was all recorded by Diddy himself. And they searched, you know, his residences. So I think it's entirely possible, if not likely, that they have a library of video footage to substantiate the allegations that they are making here. So as I said, if they prove what's in this indictment, it will not be a difficult question of, you know, coercion, consent, et cetera, et cetera. Like if a woman is being beaten and emotionally abused and threatened within, you know, her career and an inch of her life, and I'm going to blow up your boyfriend's car to force you to participate in these things, then I think is a pretty clear lack of consent in that situation. And they also allege that he used kidnapping in order to get his way. So again, portrait of a total and complete monster. He will have his opportunity to argue otherwise, but obviously the other big question here is like, who else was at these freak-offs? Who else participated? Who else in the Combs enterprise? You know, they make allegations here as well about how employees, assistants, et cetera, were, you know, securing not only supplies for the freak-offs. Okay, that may not be illegal if you don't know that, you know, what the supplies are going to be used for, but who helped to cover up the abuse. Remember, you're talking about women who had to be hidden for weeks at a time because, again, allegedly of the abuse that they suffered. They're, you know, visible marks that could not be hidden. You're talking about him tracking their medical records so that he's in control of their medical care after they are subject to this abuse. So, you know, what other stars and celebrities could be implicated here? Is, you know, Diddy the top of the chain, or is there someone else that they're going to try to get him to roll up on? Still a lot of questions. Put C4 up on the screen. We've got some reaction from the celebrity world. We had 50 Cent apparently tweeted a photo of himself and actor Drew Barrymore captioned, "Here I am keeping good company with Drew Barrymore and I don't have 1,000 bottles of lube at the house." Okay. Radio host Charlamagne the God said on Monday, on a Monday segment of the Breakfast Club, if Combs is convicted of racketeering and sex trafficking, there will be others involved who will be probably going to jail. And singer Audrey O'Day, who's been outspoken about Combs, said Monday she felt validated after the arrest, following up the tweet by saying she chose to speak to people who could move justice in the way I needed to. So, yeah, there's my sense reading the indictment is it just scratched the surface of, you know, the specifics and doesn't get a lot into the evidence of what they have. I think we're going to learn a lot more here.
Oh, absolutely. I think it's a pretty clear-cut case of just like Weinstein, where we don't know, none of those assistants never got prosecuted. A lot of the people behind the scenes in the Weinstein company basically walked free, or none of their names were brought up. Obviously, the whole Epstein case with Ghislaine Maxwell. So it's really a question of what the feds have and who they're able to prove as complicit. Also, I guess it depends on Combs himself. himself and whether he strikes a plea deal with the government. You know, like you said, Charlemagne and many other legal observers say he's almost certainly going to jail, at least for some undetermined period of time. So we'll see. I mean, the details are truly crazy, and I think demonstrate again some of the rot within hip hop and a lot of the behind the scenes stuff, which were obviously floated out there, but were 10 times worse than anybody knew, allegedly, for the lawyers.
Yeah, we'll
Okay.
see what we find out next.
We got a great panel standing by. Let's get to it. Hey, if you like that video, hit the like button or leave a comment below. It really helps get the show to more people.
And if you'd like to get the full show ad-free and in your inbox every morning, you can sign up at breakingpoints.com.
That's right. Get the full show, help support the future of independent media at breakingpoints.com.